Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Story X Story podcast, where we discuss stories across pop culture and give you advice on creating your own. It's a special bonus episode for Wednesday, the 8th of April. I'm your co host and mayamada co founder, Nigel.
I'm Tazzy, streamer and co-host.
And our guest today is Tori. Tori, welcome.
Hi, hello.
Cool. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get into all kinds of questions around artwork, creative manga, because that's what you do. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we just got a bunch of questions we're going to throw at you.
Okay, cool.
Nice, that is the agreement. All right, we can continue. Just to remind listeners that you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts from. And you can also send feedback on this or any other episode, or just like reach out on social media. mayamada on Twitter, mayamada on Instagram, and Tazzy with three eyes on both. Yeah, like I said, we're gonna just talk about making manga. So we've got Tori, who is an illustrator, a storyteller, and apparently a tea addict. Um, and maybe most importantly, actually, the tea addict thing is pretty important, but also the winner of the 2020 Manga Jiman competition. So before we get into that, because we're going to talk about your entry and winning the competition and all that,
Cool.
just to acknowledge these weird and surreal times that we all still live under. I just wanted to know how this whole situation around the coronavirus pandemic has impacted you, if it's impacted you and your work as an illustrator.
Um, I don't know. It's kind of almost made me more productive, to be honest, because now
All
I'm
right.
just inside.
Yeah.
So there's a positive there, I suppose.
This is good. This is good news for you, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Well, no, not good news, but yeah, in terms of like work, it hasn't really affected me too drastically, which I'm like so lucky for. There's so many professions that people are like this is causing such an issue, but I'm really lucky I get to pretty much work from home with most of the things that I do, so it's all right. It's okay. How about you?
Yeah, it's been good in some ways
Mm.
because I've been able to put more focus to like our next manga story. So I've been working away and making notes. So there are some benefits. It's been a disaster in other ways, but
Mm.
like with events and things and
All right,
like
yeah, cons and
yeah,
stuff.
plans, yeah, being cancelled, a lot of them being moved to like July, but just seeing how things are going, I don't think July is going to be possible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I think it's one of those situations where even though it is bad in the moment, it's kind of have to take the sort of what benefits you can from it and just like, focus on what you can control. Especially if, like you say, you're able to like work from home,
Yeah.
which I am. So there are still things that I can do, but yeah, just trying to just navigate as best as you can, really.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm like in a similar boat. For me, it's been like I have to. So I'm like full-time self-employed, but I do a ton of things.
Yeah.
But like my passion is like content creation, especially around video games. But I have to like try and make money while I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I do TV and movie extras. And normally, like, I desperately try and get booked on something. And it can be like 1 month, there'll be loads of stuff, and another month, you're just not the look that anyone needs.
Mhm.
Um, and then, like, I normally feel guilty if I don't have work because then I'm like, oh, I don't know where I'm getting money from. But now I'm like, I can't do it. So
Yeah. Mm. Does that mean
I
are you?
just get to concentrate on content creation and
Yeah.
not feel like this burden of like I need to search for shoots and try and get
Oh
booked on one.
right. Yeah, like you just get rid of
Mm.
the guilt
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. But now I just have a ton of content that I want to create or have been asked to create. And I'm like, there's too much.
it does bring a lot of focus into like what you do when it's like the only option when
Yeah.
there's a few things I've been procrastinating on, and now it's like there's nothing but to do that. So yeah, there's some benefit, I guess.
Yeah.
So Tori, so this being a podcast, people can't see your work, but I'm gonna link to like your website so people can take a look at your artwork and everything. But just for the sort of, purpose of describing what you do, tell us about your artwork style and like any influences that you've got from it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so it's quite it's like it's stylized. I wouldn't say cartoon. It's more sort of it's definitely a lot of like influence from stuff like Ghibli, and sort of more modern webtoons are kind of quite a lot of influence have a lot
Okay.
of influence over it. I use quite a lot of bright colors, and I like working with lighting. Yeah, quite sort of. I don't know, like
Yes.
semi-realistic, just like proportions, but cartoon faces. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of get that. I
Yeah.
noticed like the realistic proportions and everything, but then you have certain characteristics that are, I guess, cartoony. But I don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes cartoony can come off in a negative way, but I don't mean that in
Yeah.
any sort
No.
of negative way. Is it?
Yeah. It's influenced by like animation rather
Yeah.
than. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to probably say it.
You can definitely
Cool.
see that in it. It is very like animated.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
thanks. That's nice.
it does look like something you'd see in sort of like an animation rather than a comic, if that
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it comes
So
out, it comes alive.
yeah, and even again on your website, you do have some animatics on your website. So
Yeah.
like you are getting into animation. Like how did that come about?
I mean, since I was a kid, really, like I've loved like the idea of being a storyboard artist, and like I follow a lot of storyboard artists, and that's really a career path that I would really love to have. But I just think I don't know, like I think it's really important, especially when you're creating comics as well, to look at shots, to think about like composition. I think they all kind of like lots of different mediums blend together a lot, but that's why I really like to look at animation, because if you can translate what they're doing on screen like onto the page, I think that can make your story sort of jump out more powerfully. I think it's really important just to look at like how like what shots people are using and what's being focused on for different emotional impacts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot you can take from sort of visual medium of film or animation
Yeah.
into comics, and it's quite funny how much you can actually take from that. So I definitely see that. One of the things that stood out in terms of your animatics was is it the Lyra animatic?
Yeah. Where
So
she's
I'm
like
on
running along roofs and things.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, it looked interesting just on itself, and also I am currently reading through his Dark Materials, so I
Amazing.
thought, oh, okay, I recognize that character. Interesting. So I haven't actually watched because they did a TV adaptation
They did, yeah.
recently, so I
Oh,
haven't seen that. I thought I'd read the books first and then watch the show. So I
I think,
take it you're
yeah.
a fan.
The show is great. The books are amazing. I don't even want to say which one I prefer, because I think the show is a really good adaptation of the books. Like,
Okay.
but definitely, yeah. You know what? Definitely finish the books first, and then
Yeah.
try it. Are you enjoying them?
Oh yeah.
They're like a childhood favorite. I love those books.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm quite a big fantasy uh book guy.
Yeah.
I think those are the words I was searching for. I've read a lot of fantasy, and because I remember I started with like when I was much younger, Lord of the Rings, and then didn't even finish the trilogy, and then just like stopped reading for a while, and then got back into fantasy. Still haven't actually finished the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but have read a bunch of other uh authors, but never even came across his Dark Materials until quite recently. So I always thought that was quite funny. So just reading it, loving it so far, and seeing the animatic on your website just reminded me I need to finish so I can get to the show and then I can compare and contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely worth it. It's
Yeah.
it's so great. It's really good.
Cool. And like just for this is kind of almost like a public service announcement question for people who are aware of like comics and animation. A lot of times I run into people who just assume animation and comics are the same thing. So more for those people, can you like explain the difference in working with comics and illustration versus making like animatics as you had? Like how much work goes into it?
Uh, I mean, a lot of work goes into both mediums, but it's more, I think, you have to kind of view storyboards more as like disposable art. Like they're there to map out movement and composition, whereas comics is more of a, I mean, they're both final pieces, but a comic will be more about making it look refined, and especially if you're working full color as well. So I think comics take a lot longer than an animatic would. But then again, it depends like what style you're working in, how complex the animatic. Like if you're, I don't know, like if you're storyboarding a scene that is just like a conversational scene, that's probably gonna have a lot less like dramatic cuts and tracks and zooms and that kind of thing than if
Mm,
you're doing like a fight scene. So there's
yeah.
lots of differences. Yeah, it's not. I don't know. There's things that can map onto both, but at the same time, it's both very time consuming. Let's just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, I definitely know that. And I feel like, so just to clarify in my mind also, like animatics, what if you're producing a full-blown animation, animatics is what's used, like you say, to storyboard the plot and everything before you go into like full animation, whether it's sort of still 2D or 3D. So
Yeah.
basically this is what everyone will do to lay out their story for then to make the final piece, right?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
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 So yeah, it's because I've not worked in animation myself, would definitely like to at some point. So it's just really cool to see like you've taken that step and put together sort of these storyboards for. So you've got the Lyra animatic
Mhm.
and you've got the bikes storyboard as well.
Yeah.
So where did that story come from?
Yeah, so the bikes one and I think there's another one on there. I think it's called Birds. I think yeah.
Yep.
So they're just like miniature personal projects that I really just wanted to, like, I kind of built a miniature story around something that I already wanted to storyboard. So I wanted to storyboard movement for the bikes one. Um, just for anyone listening, it's kind of just about like two girls going around on bikes, basically. That's all that happens really. But yeah, so that was what I wanted to draw, and I, for that I looked at lots of like comics and animation that involved vehicles and bikes in movement, and how you would present that in images. And then yeah, sort of built a little bit of a story around it just so that I could have an excuse to make it, basically. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, definitely encourage people to check all those stories out on your website. Um, so I, so I think we met very briefly at the
Yes.
Japanese embassy
Yeah, we did.
at the Manga Jiman competition, and you did an interview with the Manga Forum podcast. And both like Lex and Lara have been on our show, so I listened to that just to kind of see, how you were thinking in the moment because they interviewed you just after you won, right?
Yes, pretty much. Like I think it
Cool.
was a few weeks after or a week after or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And then with the competition itself, you're talking about, actually no, before the competition, you mentioned that you had a society, was it an anime society in
Yeah.
university?
So it was a comic book production society. It was
There
the
you go.
full title. It's really complicated, but yeah, that's yeah. So me and a friend of mine basically made the society um at uni just to make a space for it, really. At uni, I think we had kind of the classic type of societies that you always have. You've got the sports ones, then you've got like art, which is all sort of painting, and then film completely separately. So there was
Mm,
nothing for like people interested in animation or comics, or anything like that. So we just decided, oh well, we'll just make one.
cool.
So
So you created your own society. You didn't
yeah,
even
we
join,
did.
created it.
Yes, yeah.
That's cool. And is is that still running? Do you know? Is it like
Yeah, we're still in contact with the sort of president that took over after we left.
nuts?
So yeah, it's still going on, still doing stuff, still making
Cool.
comics, I think, which is good. Yeah,
Nice. That's really good to hear.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, the Manga Jiman. So for people who might not be aware, so the Manga Jiman is a competition to essentially find the best UK manga creating talent, and it's held by the Japanese embassy. So it's in its, I think I saw it's in its 13th
I
year.
think 13, yeah.
Yeah, maybe just a few years ago, and I've been to the last couple. So the idea is they put out a theme, and they have two categories. So they have the Yonkoma manga, which is so Yonkoma manga is like a comic strip of 4 panels with a sort of fixed structure, and they have that for the younger entrants. So they have like 11 to 13, and, and then the Manga Jiman, which is a short story told across like 6 8 days for 14 and over. And they typically give a theme. So they always give each year they give a theme, and this year's theme was union, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Union.
And Tori won. So as I understand, you this was your first entry.
Yeah. I hadn't heard about it actually until early last year. Yeah, a friend of mine sort of mentioned it to me. So yeah.
Wow. So you won on your first entry.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. Just because I've heard like people have entered year after year and still not won. So for you to win on your first entry is no small feat.
I was very lucky. Like yeah, it was really wonderful, really nice, good feeling.
I
But
can
yeah.
imagine. Um, and surely after you won this on your first entry, your next thing was to go and play the lottery.
No.
Didn't.
I should have been.
Yeah, because
Should
sure
have
that's
been.
like the first thing. Like I
No.
immediately just buy a
Definitely
bunch of
missed the trick
tickets.
there.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
Do you think the
Not to
luck
take away from the win, but
only lasts for like one day and that's it? 24
yeah,
hours luck. Use it up.
yeah.
Damn it.
I think that's how it works, definitely. All right, well, next time you
Yeah.
remember, win
Okay.
something for the first time, go try everything else and
Yeah.
see what can
Okay.
work. Just a free tip for you there. So your entry is called A Heart of Gold or Some Other Metal. So tell us about the story behind it and what went into making it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So the story is essentially about a girl who is an android and she or robot, I don't know, whatever terminology you want to use. Um she walks past a vending machine and there's a man kind of kicking the vending machine because it's not working, like it hasn't dispensed the drink properly. Then he walks away and so she basically connects with it electronically and fixes the fault in the machine, and then walks away, and the machine like dispenses a drink as like a thank you, basically. So it's kind of a story about just empathy, I suppose, and like connecting with not people but like objects, I
Mm,
suppose. And just yeah, just a story about or like a story promoting kindness, which is just something that I like. I just love stories that do that because I don't know. Like I was talking about this recently with a friend actually. I think when you're a kid, like you gravitate towards stories that are more like dark or gory or that have these really edgy characters in it. But then like as an adult, I really value characters that are just genuinely kind, nice people, like way more. I think
Yeah.
they're kind of hard to find quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely. I could agree with that. They're hard to create in a story
Same.
as well.
Yeah, because you need a bit of conflict in the story too. But like, yeah. So yeah, in terms of like what went into it, it wasn't. It's not very dialogue heavy. Like a lot of work that I do starts with a script, but this one was only 8 pages, so I was like, okay, I don't even really need a script. So I just did the storyboards, and then I did all of it in Photoshop. Um, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and you mentioned like it not being very dialogue heavy, and so I do uh, workshops, or when there was a thing as such as school.
Yeah.
I used to do workshops with young people, just like creating characters and stories, and so always wanted to mention to them that when you're making a comic, it's dialogue, it's words, but it's also kind of like show. So you have to use the illustrations, and I think you did that to really good effect in this, where you can see the relationship between the characters. I say characters, one of them is a rendering machine, but you can see
Yeah.
the relationship and the empathy that comes through just through the actions the character takes. So I think
Yeah.
it's a really good thing.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I think it is really specific to the medium of comics, and I think it's really overlooked a lot of the time. But the kind of the interplay between like dialogue and visual is really important. And really fun to work with as well. So,
Mm.
yeah.
So, and how long did it take you to make? I'm always curious, like just the length of time like
Yeah,
creative pieces take.
comics always take so much longer than I think they're going to. Like
Yeah.
without fail, always take longer. Although I think this one, because the style I went with was pretty loose, really. I didn't refine a lot of the lines that much, so I think I did it in about, how long did it take me? I think probably about 3 weeks, I think, but like not doing it like full time, just like sort
Sure.
of an hour here and there. Um, but yeah, I think probably it took me about 3 weeks to finish it.
Okay. And like the theme, one of the things I heard on the night in the embassy is that the theme of union was quite a difficult one to create something for. Did you find it a challenge to create a story around that theme?
Yeah, it was a strange word to kind of try and work with, but then like I think I said this on the Manga Forum podcast actually, but I'll repeat myself. I don't have original thoughts. Yeah, it's sometimes if you have like a more difficult prompt word or set of restrictions, that can make you be more creative in a way that you hadn't thought of before. So yeah, it was definitely a bit of a strange one, and I drafted loads of miniature stories before I chose that one. Um, so yeah, there's ups and downs to having a weird prompt, but like I guess
Yeah.
if it was something more obvious, like I don't even know, like I don't know, love
Pizza.
something pizza. Yeah, sure,
Or
pizza.
love, that's way more deeper
Whatever,
than
it's the
what I
same.
was
It's the
thinking.
same thing, isn't it? Really. Then yeah, you might have just had a lot of like very similar types of stories. But yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine with Union, because at the obviously there's a whole selection process and things, and I imagine with Union, the first thing that comes to my mind is just like say two sides coming together,
Mm.
which is not necessarily the best theme, but I imagine there was a lot of that because with a word like this, it's you have to kind of go beyond the obvious. And again, I think that's what your your piece does. It goes beyond the obvious of like what the first idea that comes to mind may be into something else that's a bit more meaningful.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the same with pretty much every idea you have. Like you have an idea, that will be the worst one. Like always
Yeah.
like always rub it out and restart like at least 3 times. Otherwise it's just gonna be the first thing that came to your mind, which is like inevitably not that good.
Yeah, that does happen a lot as well. You touched on it. You said you had a few other ideas. So this wasn't necessarily the first idea you had. And can you like shed some light on what some of the other directions you were thinking before you got to this one?
Yeah, let me try and remember. Like it was so far away. It was like before I started storyboarding, so I just kind of bullet pointed loads of random things. But yeah,
Sure.
definitely first thing I went to was like, oh, two sides joining together, and you're thinking like, okay, so I don't know, like, is there a fight? Is there a war? Is there a battle? That's the first kind of place you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, and then you think like, okay, I don't know, two just people with differing opinions or something. And then yeah, so that's kind of like a base, and then I'm personally like a big fan of like fantasy and sci-fi and stuff. So I'll always take something like that and then I don't know, throw some monsters at it and make it look a bit weird. And that'll be my idea, basically.
Yeah, okay. And I also saw on your website you had different iterations of the character
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah, so I did a lot of like character designs. So something I really, well, I don't struggle with it as much now as I used to, but something that's definitely still one of the most difficult things about making a comic is like keeping character continuity. So I make sure I always do like a full character design and a character turnaround, like before I start making the comic, just to make
Yeah.
sure that the character is like looks the same in every panel. Yeah.
Yeah, always a good thing to do. There's usually a stage in the workshops that I do where we do like character design, and I get the kids to make like a character profile. So you know the whole you have the what does the character look like, what's their personality, and it's always funny to see where you get like with kids a sort of impatience to just like yeah I've done it and move on, and always
Yeah.
like try and impress on them like just it's good to get this like right because like you say you want the character to look and feel consistent when it comes to doing your actual story, the actual pages
Yeah.
of your manga or comic.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah.
Oh, that's cute though. It
Yeah,
really is, yeah.
it's an ongoing battle with with kids just to get them to understand like the different stages and why they're important. Yeah, we get there in the end more often than not. Um, so yeah, with the like I said, so you won the competition, and just to let people know, you don't just get the whole prestige that comes with it. You actually get a trip to Japan. So,
Yeah.
have you planned, or I guess I was going to say, have you planned
Well,
your trip? Obviously,
no,
that's not the world we live in anymore. So,
it's a
what
really
are
strange.
yeah, what
Yeah, I
were
don't
you
know.
gonna do, and how was that now
Well,
impacted?
we'll we'll see. I'm really hoping that I can still go after coronavirus has
Yes,
we'll see. But yeah, I mean, if you know, at some point when I
yeah,
get to go, it'll be nice. But
but
I've
it's
got
there.
yeah, I've got some friends in Japan that I'd really love to see that I haven't seen for a few years. And a friend in Hong Kong who I would really love to meet up with in Japan. So like, although obviously I really want to see Japan and like Tokyo and stuff. I'm really, really excited to just see my friends.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I think we're all like just excited to see anyone other than
Yeah, oh my
the
god,
people in.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, at least you've got that to look forward to. Like when we do get through this, you've got a trip to Japan waiting for you.
Yes.
Cool. And just in terms of your work in general, what's your plans like creatively, and what other stories you want to make or where you want to take them?
Yeah, so kind of building stories like across my life. I've always had these sort of this about two major like lifelong projects that I really want to do, that are really huge stories. Like they're so big. So I want to do that at some point, and I don't know whether that's going to end up being a comic or more of a novel because they're quite long and that's going to
Yeah.
take so long to do. It's all a comic. But before then, and like in the short term, I'm working on a couple sort of shorter, smaller comic projects so that I can sell them at cons and hopefully post them on Webtoon as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next immediate steps. Yeah, smaller stories first.
Yeah, always good to start small. I mean, I say that I'm a total hypocrite. Our first comic was like, is it? I think we did, yeah, 100 plus page Samurai Chef story. So I don't know what I'm talking about, but what you said makes sense. Start
Yeah.
small and build your way up.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
definitely.
other thing is just like throw yourself in the deep end and figure it out. Try not to drown in the meantime. But anyway, it all works out the same.
Yeah. I mean, it
So
worked out for
like,
you
yeah,
guys. So.
it eventually did. It eventually did. So I can say, yeah, I can say that at least. I was thinking about your just your creative process and had a couple questions about that and just how you make your work. So, well, actually, first of all, you mentioned that you had the is it comic production
Yeah, comic book
society,
production
comic book
society.
production
Yeah,
society. Okay, just
yeah.
got to make sure I get that full
It
title
doesn't
in
matter. Don't
there.
worry
So,
about it.
yes.
Yeah.
So, what did you actually do at university? Was it related to artwork, story
Um,
writing? Was it something
no.
completely different?
So I studied English
Okay. Yeah.
with Japanese. So yeah, so I focused a lot in the English parts of my degree, which was most of my degree, was
Yeah.
I focused a lot on creative writing, and particularly on scripts, and like screenwriting, as well
Okay.
as like normal creative writing.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, it's linked in that way. Because a career path that I'd also really love to have is to be an editor as well. Like story has always been like the thing that I love that I like to learn about. So
Mm.
so yeah, that's where that came from. And then the Japanese was just kind of like, I don't know, they sort of asked me in second year if I wanted to do a language, and I was like, yeah, okay. So yeah.
Cool. And when you are making your stories, like how do you go about it? Is it a case of outlining your stories before you go into it, or do you like to just like go straight into it? I know some people do that. I don't, but some
No,
people do like to just go into it and figure it out.
I I envy those people so much.
Yeah.
I plan everything like down to the page basically. So
Yeah.
so yeah, normally I'll have like a story, like a vague story idea, or it's easier to start from like a story drive in my opinion. Like if you have a character and you know what they want to get, then basically all you need to do is put obstacles in their way, and that's
Yeah.
basically the story. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll have like
Conflicts.
a I'll have a story idea, and then I will um plan out scene by scene what's going to happen, and then I'll write the dialogue for each scene, then a storyboard, and then the final piece. So there's lots
Okay.
of planning.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I definitely am a fan of outlining. I like to once I get to the point of actually writing the story, sort of, I feel if you do enough outlining, that in a way the story kind of writes itself to a certain
Yeah.
extent, where kind of once like you say, you know what people's goals are in the story, you kind of then, okay, then this kind of has to happen, or something like this has to happen, and then you kind of react from there, and voila, there goes your story
Yeah,
eventually.
exactly. Yeah, it's just kind of following the logic of it. Like if you understand your characters well enough, like this is not foolproof, by the way. Like you can think you've planned everything super
Oh
well, and
yeah,
then it just doesn't work anymore.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, ideally, if you kind of know your characters well enough, like the rest of the story kind of tells itself just with logic. Like you can be like, okay, so then what would they do? Like, and then they just do that, and it makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
just lead up from there. No,
Mm.
totally, I totally get that. All right, so yeah, I kind of wanted to end this part of the interview just to get a storytelling tip from you. A lot of the times when we do the podcast, I like to uh, give some kind of story tip just for people who might be creating their own stories or just interested in the process. And yeah, the great thing about having a guest on that does create their stories is I can just like ask you and sit back and listen instead. So yeah, is there a tip that you have that you can share?
Yeah, sure. So I think kind of the main thing is to um properly take the time to analyze your favorite scenes, be it like animation or comics or novel, whatever format. If there's a scene that you really really love, like figure out what it is about that that's making it so powerful, and then you can like utilize that in your own work. So
Mm.
like an example that I have. I didn't, by the way, I was prepped for this question. Like that's why I have this.
No, no, this is totally off the topic.
Yeah, completely off the top of my
Yeah.
head. So no. So yeah, so yeah, just an example is like um I really love in stories. There's a couple of different examples, but in stories where you can tell that a friendship is really, really strong and that two characters are really close. So I kind of took the time to analyze that in various stories that I think do it really well. And I kind of got it down to like 3 points, and it's basically like they can joke at each other's expense, but have a non-aggressive reaction. Like they can laugh about it. And
Yeah.
then 2 is like they normally side with each other on matters and like side against other people with mutual reactions. And then what's the third one? Third one is like they don't normally verbalize that their love for each other or their like how close they are. Like I think that's really what throws it off. Like if two characters say like, "Aren't we the best of friends?" and you're like, "No," immediately not. So yeah, so that's kind of how I like to do things.
Okay. Is there any particular like medium you like to analyze? Like, is it film? Was it cartoons, anime?
I don't know. I think
See,
you
this one I didn't prep you for, so.
no, you didn't pro. This is spontaneous. um, I don't know. I think you can have really strong emotional reactions to most mediums. So I like to analyze pretty much all of them and then yeah, and then bring it into whatever I happen to be working in at the time. Obviously there's different techniques that go into different things to create the same emotion, but story
Mm,
wise I think they all kind of share a lot of similarities. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I get that. Cool. All right, no, thank you for the tip. And yeah, just a shout out to any other storytellers that might be listening. Just let us know what you think about sort of analyzing different mediums. If you have a favorite as well, please feel free to send us feedback. And yeah, we'll shout it out on a future episode. So yeah, I'm gonna pass off to Tazzy and just for a few other questions. But yeah, it's been good to get your perspective on like creating stories and like any those tips that you've given along the way.
So yeah, we're going to go on to some questions that are kind of like a bit more fun. Not to say the other questions were not fun. It's not the correct words, but they're just a little more off topic, I guess.
Okay.
The off-topic section.
Yeah.
That's always what Anna says.
Yeah. So first of all, obviously your story that won was involved a vending machine. So have you ever actually had to shake a vending machine to get, you know, a something you've paid for? It's not come out, and you're like, please. Have you ever done it yourself?
No. No.
I thought this
We
was based on a true story.
Oh, sorry to disappoint. No, I don't think we don't really have that many. Like, well, we do. That's a lie. Just in my life, I haven't really seen that many vending machines or used that many, to be honest. How about you? Have you ever been in that situation?
Um, I can't say I have, but I also can't say I haven't. Because my memory like is not the best with everything. I remember the most random things and then completely forget what I said like 5 minutes ago. So I feel like it has happened,
So,
but I haven't done the shaking. I feel like then someone's come and like, been my savior.
I feel like
Done
I
the
just
dirty deed for you.
like if it really happened, I just like frown at the machine and then leave. Like I wouldn't be bothered to try and get it.
Like, how dare you? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
pretty
going.
much. Like, oh, that's my luck for today. Oh well.
Yeah. So obviously lockdown, we know. And
Yeah.
you said you've been really productive. But
Mm.
have you done any like catching up on TV shows, books, video games, anything like that?
Yeah, so okay, yeah. So I've just finished Fruits Basket. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a book
Heard of it?
series. It's a
Yeah.
book series that I really really love. It's a manga series from when I was a kid, and then they've recently made it into an anime again. Um, so I was just finished watching that, which was really good. Like really really good. You should definitely go watch that.
I'll add it to my list.
Yeah, yeah. Miles long list, I'm sure.
Yep.
Then what else was I doing? Yeah, so I've been playing Subnautica. Do you know that game?
Yeah, I've watched some gameplay of it, but I have it because they were
Uh-huh.
like giving it away free on Epic, but I haven't played it yet. How are you
It
finding it?
okay, so it depends on how scared of the ocean you are. I am I didn't realize how scared I am, but I am terrified of the ocean. But it's
This game
probably
made you realize that.
yeah. I always knew I didn't really like it, but then I now know that I cannot deal with it at all. Like I'm so scared of even okay. So this is right at the beginning of the game. They drop you in a place called Safe Shallows.
Mhm.
I was too scared to like go beyond the coral of Safe Shallows for so long. It was bad.
I feel like the ocean is like the step before space. It's so like deep and vast that
Yeah,
and
that's true, but also we have the ocean. It's right there. It's right there and it's full of things and we don't know what's in it. And I hate
yeah.
that.
You got like anything could be living down there, some like
Yeah.
Godzilla-esque monsters or
Yeah.
they're just lying dormant waiting for, I don't know, now when we're not really roaming the earth as much.
The end of coronavirus is just like giant sea leviathan comes out and you're like, oh, there you go.
The end is now. I mean, I can get it. Like, I am a complete scaredy cat. And for a while had like a series going on my Twitch channel where I play like horror games, like once a month on a Friday or a Thursday evening.
Right.
And I tell you this, I haven't played a horror since October because October I done like a whole month of it. Like I played through the Blair Witch game. I
Right.
haven't picked one up since because I'm too scared.
I don't know. Horror. I'm fine with horror. I really like horror to be honest. But nah, anything to
Which
do with
is
the
not
ocean.
HD. No,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, thank you.
Stay in a nice shallow and
Yeah.
uh,
I mean,
stay
yeah.
So
on
are
beach.
you like really scared of SpongeBob? Because that takes place in the sea. Is that a different viewing experience for you?
This is oh my gosh, you're gonna hate me. I don't like SpongeBob. Like,
Really? Wow.
I
yeah,
get that.
this
I'm
this causes a lot of rifts with
I could see that. I don't know how you
people.
can not like SpongeBob.
I'm in the middle. Like I'm like there's some funny episodes, but I don't get it how other people are like like really into it. I'm like, you know, as cartoons go, it's not really up there on my like
People
top anything list. Top
people
meme
love
list,
it.
maybe.
Yeah, no, people properly adore it. I think if you watched it as a kid, then you probably really like it, but I didn't, so I don't have that connection with it. So
Mm.
now I'm just like, I'm not going. Let's not talk about this actually.
Yeah, like,
I'm way more
cause
of like a
arguments and
George
stuff.
Shrinks girl myself. That was like one of the shows I loved
Wait,
as a kid.
what was that? What was that?
George Shrinks.
Ah, so I think I've heard of that.
Oh, it was so good. It was on Channel 5, so I guess like a lot of people didn't watch it. But um, yeah, like I think a lot of those shows, like SpongeBob was like what is it, Nickelodeon or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And so a lot of like there's a lot of shows that for me I like just didn't grow up watching because they were not on like the 5 channels, or they were but like had like one slot, and everyone else sort of like watched them on like the more expensive channels, you know. The ones you had to like pay a package for, and so they got that chance to like really love them. But I'm like, unless they were like one of the shows that really were regularly on like channels 1 to 5, like I wasn't watching it.
Yeah. That's true. There's a lot of shows that I watched as a kid, but not like in the right order because they'd only air really random episodes. So then, like let's say so like Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Like
Yeah.
I watched really random episodes of that when I was a kid, and then I watched it properly when I was like 13 or something, I think, because I like
Yeah.
found it and I was like, okay, now we're gonna watch it, like
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Definitely. Like there's a lot of anime for me. Like I started watching anime, I don't know, around like 10 or 11, but all on the internet. Like I don't watch it on the TV apart from like Pokemon.
Had Pokemon.
um
I was in the mornings before school. You watch Pokemon. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I totally feel you there. Yeah, that like random episode thing. Uh oh, okay, like so tea addict. I want to know more about this.
Okay.
Is it like English breakfast tea, or is it just tea in
It's
general? Is it a whole umbrella of tea?
it's like no, it's okay. So I will drink most kinds of tea, really, but it's English breakfast tea. But it's bad. There's so many cups of tea a day, cause people make you tea as like a nice kind of how you doing, like are you okay type of things. People will come into your room and make you a tea, and then it's like, oh, hello, and they'll make you a tea when you want to chat with someone, and then you have tea when you're gonna sit down and work, and then
It is a
also
very
in
British
the morning.
interaction we have
Yeah.
Yeah.
here. Yes.
It's pretty weird actually, but yeah, I really think people use it as like a kind of like a time stamp. People are like, okay, when I finish this cup of tea, I will do the next task in my day. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
it's one of those like tools that, you know, it's used like across different things. Like, oh,
yeah.
how you doing? Do you want a tea? I think even like in workplaces, if you work in an office or something, people. I did notice when I worked in the office, it's like how much people drink tea, but it's like an excuse to go up and make a cup of tea,
It's
have
just
a little chit
order.
chat,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and no one says anything because they're like, well, you're making tea, like priorities.
Like you don't need nearly as much. Like you don't need a drink that much. Like you don't you really don't need it. But yeah, no, I don't know. There's not really that much caffeine in tea, really. I think there's not really anything in it, I don't think. So I wonder now if I would actually, like if I tried to have a whole day where I didn't have a cup of tea, I wonder if I'd feel the effects at all.
Maybe
Don't
that's
know.
a challenge. Quarantine challenge.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
it's a good idea.
so how much is like too much tea though? It's just I'm not a tea drinker. Drink like herbal teas and I have like one every few days. I don't really drink
Okay.
like
But then you get to
English.
like green teas and like yeah,
I'm a bit
herbal.
of a green tea addict.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a regular diet of like green tea I've got going on.
Green tea is really good for you, right? That's the one that's really good for you, I think.
That's
Yeah,
the
I learned
consensus.
this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't the reason I started drinking, or maybe it was. I can't remember. I just woke up and suddenly I'm drinking green tea and it never stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like just flavored teas.
Mm.
Um, and because I don't drink like English breakfast tea much, I'm
Yeah.
not a fan. Like once in a while I'll be like, okay, I feel like a cuppa. But I generally don't. So it's kind of like my way of interacting with the coffee and tea world without drinking coffee and tea, you know. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'll have like a nice mint tea or I don't know, I have like elderflower or an echinacea or something.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, but like so I drink that a lot and it's quite I had a Pucker advent calendar.
Mm.
I was just like daily tea, woo, woo. But I found I don't drink it as much now. I don't know why.
Yeah, I always think they sound really, really nice. Like there was one, what was it? I think my friend got me one that was like creme brulee tea or something, and it was like the best thing I'd ever had because it was really sweet and nice. I like sugar. That's the thing. That's the problem, I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, when it comes to like fruit teas and things, I always want them to taste really nice, and then they just kind of taste like sort of like hot Ribena to me. I don't know.
I think you've got to get the right ones, you know. I've
Maybe.
definitely had some that I'm like, this is just subpar, you know.
Have you got like a favorite, like an absolute favorite one or not? Not really.
No, not really. It depends on my mood, you know.
Mm.
Like sometimes I really want like something sweet, and so I'll go for like a something berry tea.
Have you got one for like when you're angry, like an, an angry tea?
Well, well, do you know what's really nice? Like the pucker teas, they don't have like they're not like, oh, it's a chamomile tea. Like,
Mm.
well, they do, some of them they do, but they'll have like this like keep calm or
Okay.
feel new. Like,
Yeah.
so you feel like you're drinking a feeling. Because you're like,
Okay.
oh, today, like, I wanna, like, one's like a nice, like, relaxing nighttime. You're like, yeah, I wanna relax at nighttime. Or you wake up and you're like, I
Yeah.
wanna feel new this morning.
Like that
So,
placebo effect, basically.
yeah. Um, but there's like an echinacea, a wild berry and echinacea one that I really like. It's quite sweet. And like I feel like I'm being really healthy because like echinacea is supposed to be really good for your immune system. So I'm like, yeah. You know?
Oh yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So maybe we should move on from tea because I feel like this could be
Okay.
a very long conversation. Um, what are some of your like favorite manga, comic books, graphic novels, anything sort of along those lines?
Oh, okay. So my sort of absolute favorite, that will I don't think it will ever be beaten is Full Metal Alchemist. That is my favorite. That's incredible. If anyone on this earth hasn't read that yet, go read it. Um, yeah, that's my favorite one. And then others, I don't know, like that's the main one I love. And then recently I've read, what was it called? There's a creator that I really really like at the moment. So she's got one book that's called The God's Lie, and another series that's called The Golden Sheep. I don't remember her
Okay.
name. But those are the books. Those are really really good, and I haven't heard lots of people talking about them, but they're really really good. Worth it.
Okay. Interesting. But yeah, I definitely Full Metal Alchemist. I've watched the anime,
Have you watched
um,
Brotherhood or have you watched the original?
Brotherhood,
Okay, okay,
the
good.
real one, you
We're on
know.
the same. Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely excellent. Like I've not read the manga. I'm really bad at reading manga.
It's pretty
People
much
do
the
that.
same as Brotherhood. Like it's almost scene for scene, I think. Brotherhood
Yeah.
for the manga. It's really good, yeah.
I'm
So
working my way through Brotherhood.
yeah, how
Yeah.
you feeling it so far?
Yeah, no, it's really good. I had to pause watching it and then come back to it just because sometimes you watch things and it's kind of in the background and you can watch it, and some things you have to pay full attention.
Yeah, you
So
can't
I s-
background watch
yeah, I
FMA.
started background watching it, and then I just noticed actually I need to pay full attention to this. So let me stop doing this background stuff and let me come back. and give
Yeah.
my full attention. So I'm gonna do that. But I really liked it so far.
Where did
Yeah.
you get to without spoilers, if you can remember, or is it all sort of a
Ooh,
blur?
no, it was I was really early. So he was the Philosopher's Stone. So I was just that early. There, yeah, there, around there. I don't want to say
Okay.
too much.
Okay, that's
'Cause-
fine.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely one you have
that's
to pay
something I
attention
definitely.
to,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
there's all like things that connect and fall into place. And then if they
yeah. There's
like
a lot of
mention it, you're
themes
gonna
as
be
well.
like, what? Like you're not gonna quite
Yeah.
get that
Yeah.
impact of.
There's not one thing I think that happens in that whole series that doesn't mean something by the end, like that
Yeah.
isn't relevant. It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
good.
They
Yeah, I love
do
stories
not know
like
what
that.
filler means. It's great.
No.
That's that's a really good thing in anime when they don't know what the
Yeah.
meaning of the word filler.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, thank you for joining us, Tori. It's been really good chatting to you.
Thanks for having me. It was good. It's good fun.
No worries. Yeah, just another reminder, this episode and all our episodes will be available wherever you get your podcasts, and you can also support us on Patreon to get episodes 24 hours early. And another reminder that we also make manga, so you can check out all our manga, including the newest one, Hot Lunch Volume 1, which is available on our website and nowhere else because I'm not leaving the house. And yeah, so thanks for listening to this bonus episode. So we're going to have more special episodes as we're all stuck in quarantine. We had schedule. We're changing the schedule because we've got more time to do a few more episodes. So just look out for a few extra episodes here and there being squeezed into. Basically, just like subscribe to us and you'll get notified when episodes go live. Our email address is feedback@mayamada.com. You can send feedback on anything we've discussed today, and our website is mayamada.com/story x story. Stay tuned until next time.